Howdy, yo, folks. Hello, and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass, live and in living color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. Welcome back to another edition of Grande's Gridiron today, where we pre-record our NFL picks. Of course, I initially had a special guest planned, but unfortunately he could not make it tonight. Next week, I have another special guest planned, Mr. Dan Giulianotti. Hopefully he can make it. I hope to have my first guest on here. But for now, we're still pre-recording these, and we'll just go right into it. As far as my picks last week, they definitely weren't as good as the first week. I guess we could run through them really quick. NFL week 2. Let's see. So Steelers went over. That's one win. I guess I'll count all the games I won. Saints went over. I won that game. I guess we'll go from the bottom up since we started that way. Dolphins won. I lost that game. Commanders won. I won that game. Cowboys won. That's 4. Giants won. That's 5. Niners won. That's 6. Titans won. I didn't get that one. Bills won. 7. Falcons won. I got that one wrong. Chiefs won. That's 8. Bucks won. That's 9. Colts won. I got that wrong. Seahawks won. I got that wrong. Eagles won. I got that right. 10. And Ravens won. So once again, I went 11-6 disregarding the spread. So that's my second straight week at 11-6. If you're not touching the spread, if you're just going money line, so pretty damn good. With the spread, I think I did horrible. Like I don't want to take the time to start here because I actually want to just get into the picks and not bore you all. But I know I did a lot worse, and I think almost every over under I did was wrong. I think every over under I did was wrong. So that was definitely not the greatest for picking spreads, picking over unders. Not my greatest week. But let's try to bounce back. Let's jump in to the NFL Week 3. Of course, it kicks off tomorrow night. Thursday Night Football, as the New York Giants will travel to San Francisco to play the 49ers. The 49ers, I knew were going to be in a close game. They pulled it out by 7. I knew the Rams would cover that 7, so I knew that game was kind of a trap. And the Giants are coming off a game where they were down 28-7 in the third quarter and just miraculously came back and defeated the lonely Arizona Cardinals, who 2 weeks in a row, I believe, have had a fourth quarter lead, which is absolutely amazing. But they've been picked to be the worst team in the league, and they are still 0-2, so they very well could be. But right now, I don't know. It's been kind of a weird season for them. They've been in both games and probably could have won both games easily. But in this game, look for the 49ers to just absolutely blow out the New York Giants. This is the 49ers home opener, I believe. The Niners are winning this game by more than 10. I would take the Niners. I would give the 10 over under 45. I wouldn't touch that just because I don't know what the Giants are going to do. I don't even know if Barkley's going to play. I think Matt Breida might even be the starter. I'm not sure as of the recording of this if Barkley's going to play or not. But I would take the Niners. I would give the points. I think the Niners are going to steamroll the New York Giants coming off a very emotional comeback win because they played 6 quarters, the Giants, of scoreless ball and then just went off in the last half of that game and salvaged their record to get to 1-1. But you're not beating the 49ers in their home opener. 49ers are looking like they're going to win a Super Bowl this year right now. So I don't know. In the NFC, they're, to me, the most impressive looking team thus far. Love the Niners. Give the points. Don't be afraid. Niners by more than 13, I would say. Okay, so moving on to Sunday, the Colts will travel to Baltimore to play the Ravens. Colts are getting 8 on the road. I like the Ravens in this game. I don't know if I'd give the 8 here. I think Gardner Minshew might be the quarterback because, of course, the starter, Young, he might be in concussion protocol right now. I don't know if he's going to play. And he had a couple rushing touchdowns last week, and the Colts just steamrolled the Texans in Houston. But I think the Ravens will move to 3-0 here. I don't know if I'd touch the spread in this game. Over under 44.5. There, I would take the over. I'd lean towards the over. I actually think some points get scored in this game. So I would go with the over. I'd go with the Ravens. I wouldn't touch the spread at -8. I would leave that alone. That also looks like a trap to me. Titans at the Browns. Tennessee, of course, coming off the win against the Chargers, who just basically handed them the game. Tannehill still didn't look great to me. They tried some deep balls. They hit a couple deep balls. But at the end of the day, Derrick Henry was the man, and they gave him the ball when they needed it, and he was able to get them in field goal position overtime to win. The Brownies, on the other hand, are coming off a really ugly loss in Pittsburgh to my Steelers, a game where they absolutely should have won, a game where they lost their best player, Nick Chubb, and my fantasy stud. This was going to be Chubb against Henry, my 2 fantasy stars, and unfortunately, Chubb, and say a prayer for Nick Chubb. I'm not religious, but I feel so bad for what happened to Nick Chubb, man. He broke his knee, and oh my God, it was one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen, man. So bless up to Nick Chubb. I hope you recover well and bounce back better than ever. But right now, it's just really a dark place to be in a Cleveland Browns fan because you just lost your best offensive player, your best player overall in Nick Chubb. I know a lot of people say Myles Garrett. Hell no. Give me Nick Chubb. I think he's the best player in Cleveland. And now, I mean, you're facing a Tennessee Titans team that is in a similar situation where, the Titans quarterback hasn't played great. The Cleveland quarterback has not played great. Watson has not been very good. Neither of these teams in the passing game have really clicked as of late, but I think Derrick Henry is going to be the difference maker in this game. Granted, I know Cleveland's front four is good and they're solid. They may just stuff him. They may make Tannehill have to make a play or two, but I think the Titans are the better football team right now. I'm going to lean with Tennessee. I think Mike Vrabel is also slightly a better coach than Stefanski. Give me Tennessee. Give me the Titans, and I would take the points. I would also take the 4.5 points. Thank you very much. So, okay, Falcons at the Lions. Lions -4 home favorites. This is a tricky game because the Lions I thought were going to steamroll the Seahawks and ended up playing really sloppy defense, lose that game at home in their home opener. And, of course, the Falcons, on the other hand, I thought were going to get steamrolled in home against Green Bay, and then Green Bay came up a point short. So that was a very interesting game there. I was both wrong on both those games. Look for the Lions to bounce back. I give the Falcons the 4 points. I think the Falcons are very, very, very vulnerable on the road, especially I think Desmond Ridder has a lot of fucking kinks in the armor. I don't really like what I've seen from him. I think Goff has played much better in the first 2 weeks of the season. I really like what I've seen from Goff, and I have always made fun of him. So that's truly an unbiased statement. I think the Lions bounce back. I don't think the Lions lose 2 straight at home. I can't see that happening. I think the Lions go to 2-1, and you can even give the Falcons the 4 points. I think the Lions win by a touchdown. 6 or more. Next game, Saints at the Packers. Saints opening 2-0 as I predicted. Packers last week, I thought they were going to go to 2-0. They dropped one to the Falcons, but of course this week they'll host Derek Carr and the New Orleans Super Saints. This is an interesting game. This is a -2 Packers favorite spread here. 43 is the over-under. I think I would go with the under hitting. And I'm going to go with the fucking Saints. I think the Saints have been impressive defensively, and I think they could give Jordan Love some troubles, and I think that the Saints have just been just good enough this year. They haven't shown anything very impressive. I mean, what they got a 3-point win in Carolina, a 1-point win at home against Tennessee. So their margin of victory is +4. I mean, in 2 games, they have a +4 point differential. That's not great, but both games have been very low scoring. The defense has shown up. And the Packers' offense last week, while it looked good early, it stalled in the second half, and it looked like to me that, I don't know, you could see some of the kinks in maybe Jordan Love's armor. So, I don't know. I like the Saints here. I think the Saints are going to go to 3-0. I like the Saints as the road dog. I would take the 2 points. Hell, I may even buy up to a field goal just in case you lose by a field goal. I don't think that's a bad move, and I like the under here. I think the 43 under hits. Next game, Texans at the Jaguars. Jaguars, -9 home favorites. For some reason, they've had an issue beating this Texans team over the years. They always give them fits. But I like the Jaguars in this game to win. I don't know if they covered -9. I wouldn't touch the spread in a game like this, but the 45.5 over-under, I like the over here because last week the Jaguars scored 9 points. They are going to absolutely explode on the offensive side of the ball this week. I think they're going to bounce back big in a week where they were kept out of the end zone by a bad Kansas City Chiefs secondary, in my opinion. I think they're going to bounce back big here, and I think they're going to beat the Texans. I don't know if it's going to be by 9, but I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. So give me the Jags, give me the over, leave the spread on the table. Next game, Broncos at the Dolphins. Dolphins -7 home favorites. The Broncos, listen to me. The Broncos were like, take what I said personally, and they started scoring points. They were up 21-3 in the first half, and then, of course, they would go on to lose by a score of 35-33. Of course, Russ was cooking with a Hail Mary at the end, and they couldn't convert the 2-point conversion, and the Broncos open up at 0-2 with Sean Payton, the offensive genius, as their head coach, and they did look better. They did score touchdowns, and they looked much, much better, but their defense fell asleep. They just haven't been playing as a team, man. I think the Broncos are one of the most disappointing teams out there right now. And the Dolphins just keep on rolling no matter what I do. I picked them to lose and start 0-2. They've started off 2-0. They flipped me off, and Tua turned the ball over. Everybody's loving to love Tua turn the ball over, even though he turned the ball over last week too. I still hate his guts. I still hate the Dolphins. I think they're a bunch of pieces of shit. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to be unbiased here, and I'm going to take the Dolphins. I'm going to give the 7. I think the Dolphins will steamroll the Broncos in Miami. I like the 47 over under. I would say the under hits here. I don't think the Broncos are going to score 33 fucking points again. I just don't see that happening. I don't think Russ will be cooking on the road. Miami's not an easy place to go and win ball games. So I like the Dolphins. I like giving the 7, and I like the under 47 there. So that's my pick there. Here, I finally picked you Miami. And now that watch them lose now. Chargers at the Vikings. Vikings +1 at home, +1 road dogs, home dogs against Justin Herbie Cookies and the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, of course, the Chargers have been in 2 games this year where they absolutely should have won, and I think due to poor coaching, they are 0-2 right now. Herbert has put up, I think, over 50 points in the 2 games, not turned the ball over, and they're 0-2. I mean, you play piss-poor pass defense, and this week you're facing a really tough passing team. I mean, Kirk Cousins last week threw for, I think, 300 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Eagles. I mean, Addison's running all over the place. Justin Jefferson is untouchable, uncoverable. Fucking KJ Osborne, fucking the tight end, Hawkinson. They got some weapons offensively, man, and they're going to pick this Chargers defense apart. The over-under is 51.5. Give me the over. Smash that over. I think this is going to be a shootout between 2 0-2 teams, and one of them almost has to start 0-3, barring a tie. I think the Chargers are going to find a way to win this game. If they lose and start 0-3, I think you seriously have to start thinking about firing Brandon Staley. I think Brandon Staley's a bad head coach. And like I've said in past videos, I don't think they're ever getting past a wild card round with that guy as their head coach. They have to make a change. He is truly a bottom 5, bottom 3 coach, in my opinion, in the NFL. I just think the guy sucks. You have all the talent in the world. You have Justin Herbert. You have a fantastic fucking safety in Derwin James. You have fucking Austin Eckler. You have Michael Williams. You have fucking Keenan Allen. You have a first-round draft pick, Quentin Johnston, who you barely used. I mean, I like the tight end, Gerald Everett. He's a good vet. I like everything I see with the Chargers except their coach. I just think they have the wrong guy at the lead of that ship, and I don't care how polished your ship is, man. It's going to crash into the fucking iceberg unless you have the right person leading that charge, leading that boat. And right now, that's the Chargers. That's just what they've been. And the Vikings, honestly, have not been very well coached either. I mean, last year they were a good story. They were 11-0 in 1-possession games in the regular season, lose the 1-possession game in the postseason when it matters most. And their head coach was getting a lot of praise, and he did a good job. But right now, this is a must-win for both of these teams. I think whoever loses this game is not making the playoffs this year. So I consider this a playoff game. You don't want to start 0-3, man. So I think the Chargers are going to get the road win. I'd give the fucking point, and I'd take the over. I think the Chargers are finally going to get out of their own way. And if they lose, I think Brandon Staley should be in the hot seat to be fired. I believe that. Next game, moving on. Patriots at the Jets. Patriots are -2 road favorites. Yeah, road favorites against the Jets. Jets getting 2 at home. The Jets haven't beat the Patriots, I don't think, since I'm in fucking high school. So I'm going to take the Patriots here to get their first win. Zach Wilson has played his worst ball against this team. For whatever reason, Bill Belichick knows how to game plan against Zach Wilson, and I don't think that changes here. The Jets cannot beat the Patriots, and Aaron Rodgers was their big sign. Everyone was like, oh, now we have Rodgers. He'll be able to pick apart Bill Belichick. No, now that Rodgers is fucking hurt, it's going to be Zach Wilson, and I don't think you guys can beat the Patriots. They just have their number. The Jets have a better roster. The Jets have way more talent. The Jets, in my opinion, have a good coach. But for whatever reason, the Patriots have their number. They just do. I think the Patriots get their first win. I do not see Belichick starting 0-3. It's going to be a tough game. I do think it'll be close, but I do think the Pats will win. I would give the points too. I would definitely give the Jets 2 points. Moving on to the next game, Bills at the Commanders. The Commanders, a surprising 2-0 this year. Not a lot of people saw them starting 2-0. I actually did. I had them picked 2-0. I've been right about each Commander game so far. Bills, of course, coming off an absolute blowout of the Raiders, of course, in Buffalo. This game in Washington. Washington +6.5 home dogs here. If you buy that up to 7, I could see taking the points and taking the Commanders at home with a touchdown lead. The over-under is 45.5. I like the over here. I think the Commanders could really surprise us here. I would take the Commanders +7 or 7.5. Buy it up a full point. Take the Commanders +7.5, and I think you're going to win money. But as far as who wins the game, give me Buffalo. If you're just taking money line, take Buffalo. Take the over 45.5. If you're going spread, take the Commanders. Buy it up a point to 7.5. And I think the Commanders are going to cover a touchdown. I think this game is Buffalo by 7. And I like what I saw last week in Buffalo. They shut me up. They played really good football, and I was proud to see it. The Commanders have been odd. You know, they underperform week one. They sneak out with a win against a bad team. Last week, they're getting murdered. And then they just have this wild second half where they just start clicking on all cylinders. And Terry McLaurin, one of my favorite wide receivers in the NFL, just has a really, really nice second half in a season where he had been struggling slightly. Sam Howell looked better. The defense, for the most part, looked better. Granted, they had an ugly first half. But I like what I've seen from Ron Rivera's team so far. I think Washington could be an underrated wild card pick in the NFC. But I see them getting their first loss here. I think Buffalo goes in, beats them by a touchdown. But again, that spread, if you could get it up to 7.5, I'd take the Commanders and take the 7.5, man. I think you not making a bad bet there with the Commanders being at home. Next game, Panthers at the Seahawks. Seahawks minus 4.5 home dogs. I'm sorry, home favorites, okay, of course, against the Panthers. The Panthers have looked atrocious. The quarterback has looked fucking really, really, really green. Why can I not think of his fucking name at the I said Young before with fucking the Colts. It's actually Stroud, I think, is the Colts, and then fucking Young is this team. Young has looked bad. I don't like what I've seen from him. I don't like anything I've really seen from the Panthers so far. I think they've been just really, really ugly. I think they scored 10 points in the first game and 17 last week, and it was 9 for most of the fourth quarter. They scored a late 8. I don't know. I think the Seahawks win this game easy. I think you give the 4.5. I don't know about the over-under because the Panthers have not been scoring very much. But I think the Seahawks at home, I like them. I like giving the 4.5. I think Seahawks win this game easy. I think Seahawks go to 2-1. Next game here, Cowboys at the Cardinals. Wow, a tale of two teams in the NFC. The Cowboys right now looking like Super Bowl contenders. The Cardinals right now had the fourth quarter lead in 2 games and blew them both in a season where they're projected to be the worst team, go 2-15 or 1-16. The Cowboys will win this game. Now the Cardinals are getting 12 and a fucking half points. That is wild. These next 2 games have the biggest 2 spreads, which is wild. I can't see giving a team 12 and a half, especially because the Cardinals have covered their first 2 games. They covered against the Giants. They covered against Washington. Now, do they cover against Dallas? 12 and a half? You could easily cover. I mean, they lose by 11. They lose by 12. You cover. That's a lot of fucking points to cover, man. I wouldn't touch that spread. And if you do, I think you have to take the points. But I think Dallas will steamroll the Cardinals. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be in the lead in the fourth quarter of this game. And if they are and you take the points, I think you're going to be very happy with the results. So I take the Cowboys money line here. Granted, the money line is going to be inside. I didn't look up what the money line is, but I'm sure it's like minus 500 or something. It's probably a stupid money line. Probably like the next game we're talking about here, which is Bears at the Chiefs. The Chiefs minus 12 and a half at home, over under 49. The Bears also another team that has looked horrible. Their fan base is upset. That's the AJ Zetro. Happy birthday, by the way. The Bears getting 12 and a half on the road. I actually think the Chiefs will cover this. The Chiefs' offense has not looked good in either game. I mean, they scored 20 and they scored 17. And they're a 1-on-1 football team. They have not been clicking yet. Look for the Chiefs to finally have that big offensive week this week at home against a team in the Bears that's just struggling and reeling, and they just look all sorts of out of whack here. I think the Chiefs win. I actually think the Chiefs win by 14 or more. I like the Chiefs. I actually would fucking give the 12 and a half to Chicago. We'll see if Bears can prove me wrong. We'll see. But right now, yeah, I think the Chiefs will steamroll them. They're just due for a big, big, big week where they embarrass somebody. But going on to our next game, of course, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. My Pittsburgh Steelers, who just got an ugly, ugly home win this past week. Matt Canada stinking up the joint as per usual, but the defense scores 14 points, and the offense does just enough in scoring 12, and we get the 26-23, or was it 26-22? Yeah, 26-22 victory against our division rival Cleveland Browns. We go to 1-1. The Raiders get tromped in Buffalo, and of course, our home underdogs. Raiders +1 as this line opens, over under 44. I think the Steelers are going to win this game. I initially, when the season started, I said this was the big trap game, and it still could be. We could easily lose this game. Because the way our offense is playing right now, we could easily lose this game. We scored 19 offensive points in 2 games. We had -7 fourth quarter yards in this past week's game and went into the fourth quarter trailing by fucking a touchdown or 3 points, and we won the game. That's how good our defense was this past week. If we play like that again against anybody, we're not winning the game. So right now, I don't have much hope in the Steelers. The Raiders looked even worse. They got blown out 38-10, but it was in Buffalo. It was against a team that was coming off a bad loss in their own right. This is the Raiders. I believe they're home openers. So this is going to be a very, very electric game of Sunday Night Football. I think the Steelers get the W. I would give the fucking point. I would. I think this game is decided by 3 or 4, though. I think this is a very fucking close game. I think the Steelers have to fucking play better on offense. If you don't go off, if this is not your week to go off on offense, you're in trouble. Because I know you played the 49ers. I know you played that great front four in Cleveland. I know you've been playing some tough defenses. But if you keep getting Kenny Pickett in the 3rd and 8s, forget it. You have to be in 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, those type of situations where you can decide to run the ball, you can decide to do any kind of different thing to stay creative. No jet sweeps, no fucking wide receiver jet sweeps, Matt Canada. We want to stay away from these things. But I think the Steelers will get the win here on prime time for a second straight week. I think it's a close one. I think the Steelers by 3 or Steelers by 4. I would give the 1 point to the Raiders. I wouldn't be uncomfortable in doing that. By game time, it could be a pick 'em. +1. That could easily be a pick 'em. But moving on, we have a doubleheader for Monday night, and we'll wrap this video up. I'm sorry, I actually have a time limit for some reason tonight. It is only 23 minutes of recording, so I'll wrap these games quick. Eagles at the Bucks. The Bucks are surprising 2-0. The Eagles are non-surprising 2-0, I suppose. Bucks getting 6.5 at home. The Eagles will win this game, but I like the Bucks to cover. And I would buy it up a point. Get it to 7.5, and I really like the pick. I really like taking the Bucks plus 7.5 at home. The Bucks have not been fantastic, but they've won their games. Baker Mayfield's played good. Not great, but good enough. And it's going to be interesting to see them go up against this Eagles team. I think these are 2 teams that could very well find themselves in the playoffs. I think the Eagles are a lock, but I think nobody saw the Bucks going 2-0. And right now they are, and they're tied with the Saints for the division lead, as well with the Falcons. We have 3 teams in that division that are 2-0. So that's a very interesting division, and everyone thought it was going to be really bad after last year's, as did I. But I like the Bucks to cover the 7.5 if you buy it up a point, but I like the Eagles to win by 7. So Eagles, money line by 7. Bucks, if you take the plus 7.5, I like that pick. Last game, Rams at the Bengals, a Super Bowl rematch from a couple of years ago, of course, as the 1-1 Rams, led by Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, will travel to the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals are minus 5.5 home favorites. This is their home opener. Bengals have started a disappointing 0-2 for the second straight year, as I predicted. And this is a tough game. I really think the Rams could go in there and kick their candy asses and upset them. But I don't see the Bengals starting 0-3. I think the Bengals are going to win here. I think the Bengals get their first win at home. I think they get a little bit of momentum back. I think Joe Shiesty will finally play like that big money contract has permitted. However, the minus 5.5 is interesting. It's very tempting to want to give the points to the Rams, but the Rams have covered last week. Like I said they would. I could see them covering again. Right now, though, I'm going to take the Bengals. I'm going to give the 5.5 points. And as far as the over-under, I'm going to say over 46. So I like the Bengals there to finally get their first win, and the Rams will fall to 1-2. But that's going to be all for the show. I have 30 seconds left to wrap this up. So everybody, thank you so much for watching Grande's Gridiron, and we will catch you next week. Hopefully with Dan Giulianati. It'll be a live show. We'll see. But time to do some show prep for the David Lynch show tomorrow. I'm not going to want to miss that, and we will catch you next time only on the Graveyard. Too sweet, peace, and we'll catch you next time.